Hello everyone, we're from Book 7 are going to present our material about the role of the translator, visibility, ethics, and sociology. But before we start our presentation, let me introduce you our group members. The first one is Aulia, Naufan, Widana. The second one is Dzulfikar, Yazid, Syafiq, and then Muhammad Rizal, Adha, and me, Samuel Kusumawijaya, as the moderator. So, in this material, will be divided by 5 parts. The first part, talking about the cultural and political agenda of translation. The second part, talking about position and positionality of the literary translator. And the third one, talking about the power network of the publishing industry. The fourth section, talking about the reception and reviewing of translation. And the last section, talking about the sociology and historiography of translation.
In this part, I would like to explain about the cultural and political agenda of translation. Based on Affinity statement, the scope of translation studies needs to be broadened to take account of the value-driven nature of social culture framework. So, based on Affinity and the invisibility of the translator, that this invisibility here it refers to the translator's situation and activity in the contemporary American and British cultures. So there are two types of translating strategies. The first one is domestication and foreignization. Domestication, which means the translator leaves the reader in peace as much as possible and moves the author toward him or her, and whereas the foreignization, the translator leaves the writer in peace as much as possible and moves the reader towards the writer. So the aim is to make the translator visible and make the reader realize they are reading a translation of work from a foreign culture. So in Berman's negative analytic of translation, the properly ethical aim of translation act is to receiving the foreign as foreign. So this seems to be and based on this Berman works or analytic, this seems to be agree with Vanity's foreign negation strategy, but he considers that there is generally a system of textual deformation in the target text that prevents the foreign from coming through. So he calls that negative analytic. So he identifies 12 deforming tendencies. The first one is rationalism. So it means the modification of it has something to do with the modification of synthetic structures, and clarification includes of explicitization, and there's expansion targets, and that the aim is to the aims or basically most likely the target text tend to be longer than the source text, and immobile, and there is once more there's more ennoblement. The translators tend to improve on the original by rewriting it in a more elegant style, and there's qualitative improvement. It's the replacement of words with the target text equivalents that lack the richness. Quantitative improvement, loss of lexical variation in translation, and the destruction of rhyme. So in novels, rhyme can be destroyed by the deformation of word order and punctuation in order to translate the novels, and then the destruction of the underlying network of signification, which means the translator should be aware of the network of words that are formed throughout the text. The destruction of linguistic patternings is the translator's adoption of a range of techniques standardized of the target text, which leads to incoherence. And there is the destruction of vernacular networks or their exotication. It relates to local speech and language patterns which play an important role in establishing the setting of a novel. And plus that there is the destruction of the expression and idioms. So replacing an idiom by an equivalent one in the target text is considered an attack on the discourse of the foreign work. Of course, you change the idiom from the source text. And the last one is the effectment of the suppositions of language. So the way translation tends to erase trace of different forms of language that coexist in the source text, but which is a central problem in most of the translation novels. I think that's it from my explanation about the cultural and the political agenda of translation. Move on to
Okay, thank you for the time. The next material will be delivered by me, Aulia Naufan Widana from Class A, English Department 2021. B. The position and positionality of the literary translator. What do literary translators say about their practices and on the recent discussion on the positionality of the translator? There is two. The first is creativity and the second is positionality. Creativity is a growing theme of translation, and the positionality of the translator has also become more central in translation studies. Uh, the next is C, the power network of the publishing industry. Deal with crucial aspects of the powerful publishing industry. Uh, Literary translation is an economic activity. Publishers seek to minimize the cost of translation. Usually, the editors are not fluent in the foreign language, and the main concern for them is that the translation should read well in the TL. All this in addition to other agents like, for example, is commissioners, revisers, and more like that. Make the role of the translator to be weak in this complex network. This is described as power play. That's all from me. Thank you.
Okay, I would like to explain about the reception and reviewing of translation. Reception here refers to the examination of how a work is received by readership. Reception lies its focus on the receiving culture, especially on criticism, reading, and interpretation. Translation, therefore, forms a major factor in reception, with the general aim of reception studies being to reveal the wide spectrum of the interpretation its text offer. Moreover, translations are the prime instrument in the distribution of literature across linguistic and cultural borders. Horizon of expectation used by JAWS refer to the general expectation of the genre or series to which the new work belongs. Paratext device appended to the text as subordinate but crucial in guiding the reading process. According to Gannett, two kinds of paratext are peritext, appear in the same location as the text and are provided by the author or publisher. For example, titles and subtitle. Second one, epitext. Any paratextual element not materially appended to the text within the same volume, but circulating, as it were, freely in a virtually limitless physically and social space. For example, review on the text which are written by others. Okay, the next part is the sociology and historiography of translation. Introduce recent and increasingly important work of the sociology of translation, particularly incorporating the work of Pierre Bourdieu. The focus has been recently placed on the study of translator rather than text and culture. Based on peer theory, the concept of investigating the role of translator as active agent are field of social activity. Translation and the participant, including author, commissioner, publisher, editor, translator, and reader. Habitus is the product of an individual history of the whole collective history of family and class. Capital, economic, social, cultural, and symbolic. Illusion, the cultural limit of awareness. Heteronomy and autonomy, which refer to how dependent the respective field is on the field of power. Doxa, a term that indicates the dominant ideological tenets of the target culture. Naming, which refer to the definition of the field. Translator and the author Wahirdem should be mindful that a translator is an active agent and interpreter who must navigate the plurality and varying sets of meaning as well as the underlying cultural environment in which the text was produced.
Okay, I think that's all from us. We apologize if there were some mistakes while we were presenting our materials. Thank you for watching.